What is up, you sexy YouTube mother lovers? Got another fun video for you guys today. I'm just gonna cut right to the chase on this one, and well, the ATF has just released their new proposed guidelines for how they're gonna classify pistol braces versus SBRs going forward. And to be perfectly honest with you, it looks a lot more like a D&D scorecard than it does a government regulation. Roll a 10 or higher to not get your dog shot. If these proposed guidelines go through, it would make most pistol brace configurations completely illegal and have to be registered as an SBR. I told you this was coming. We all knew this was coming. And here it is. In this video, I'm going to be diving into exactly what they're trying to do and exactly what you guys can do to help fight it. It's going to be a wild couple years coming up, guys. So I think it's really important we all just kind of stand together as a gun community and get behind good gun advocacy groups like the Firearm Policy Coalition, which is why I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm donating all of the sponsored money from this video to the Firearm Policy Coalition. Today's sponsor is Goat Guns. Goat Guns makes super cool, realistic firearm miniatures for display on your desk, and it's the perfect thing to scare off your Xanax mom coworkers at the office. They've got tons of cool models to choose from. You can check them out in the links in the description and in the pinned comment. And remember I said before, if there was a Goat Gun AR-15 on my desk, that I'm in trouble. Well, it's on my desk because we're all in trouble. So let's dive into this proposed regulation here. So the new criteria is broken into 3 sections. Section 1 is just prerequisites, so it has to meet these 2 requirements before you're even allowed to go into the point system. First one is that the weapon must weigh at least 64 ounces, and the second is that the weapon must have an overall length between 12 and 26 inches. First one basically says just the gun has to weigh more than 4 pounds. I have no idea why they felt the need to specify that. The second, the weapon must basically be between a foot long and just over 2 feet. This one is particularly funny to me because the entire argument behind regulating SBRs in the NFA, like under the same category as machine guns and suppressors and things, is because it's supposed to make the gun more dangerous when it's like short and able to be easily concealed, right? Or that's the argument. So it's dangerous because it's short. And now they have it to where if it's too long, it's now an SBR. For reference, the average AR-15 I think is at like 35 inches, so it has to be 10 inches shorter than your typical AR-15, or else it's an SBR, which is what would happen if you cut down an AR-15 by 10 inches. Let's just keep going. So now we move on to sections 2 and 3, or as I like to call them, Who Wants to Be a Felon? This is where we start getting into our point system. That's right, the ATF is essentially gamified whether or not you go to jail for 10 years. The idea here is if you collect more than 4 points in either section 2 or section 3, you have an illegal SBR. So let's see what they said is worthy of points here. Accessory design, not based on a known shoulder stock design, 0 points. Incorporates shoulder stock design features, 1 point. Based on a known shoulder stock design, 2 points. Already, I'm a little scared about how subjective this is. How close does it have to be to a known shoulder stock design before it is either incorporating features or is a copy of them? It would be nice if they included some examples, but they didn't. So that is up to your average field agent, I suppose. Rear surface area. Device incorporates features to prevent use as a shouldering device, 0 points. Okay. Minimized rear surface lacking features to discourage shouldering, 1 point. Rear surface useful for shouldering the firearm, 2 points. Material added to increase rear surface for shouldering, 3 points. So if you had that last one, you are 3/4 of the way there to this being considered an SBR, just in that one category. Adjustability, non-adjustable fixed stock design, 0. Adjustable or telescoping attachment designed for shouldering, 2 points. So already, if I'm understanding this correctly, pretty much everything from the SB tactical lineup is already illegal, which is ridiculous considering there's God knows how many millions of those in circulation in civilian hands in the US by now. Why were these ever allowed to be sold in the first place? Well, because the ATF said that they were until they decided they wanted to change their minds. Just a quick reminder, no new laws have passed. Okay, they're not changing these regulations because there's new laws that were introduced and passed. They're just arbitrarily changing their fucking mind. There's a bunch more stuff here. Stabilizing support, whether it's fin style design with the strap, without the strap, whether, it can fully wrap around the arm, partially, or doesn't wrap around, and you can get a shitload more points here. All in all, it needs less than 4 in order to proceed to Section 3, meaning I think it might be if you have 4, you're out. With that in mind, I am actually struggling to think of a popular brace design on the market right now that doesn't hit 4 points. I'm sure there probably is one, but I can't think of one that actually meets the qualifications, which means that already in Section 2, you're banning the vast majority of arm braces on the market. And I'm guessing they're not feeling like they want to grandfather anything in. Before we move on to Section 3, if it feels a little ridiculous that there's a point system like this that's borderline arbitrary, don't worry, it absolutely is. But there's actually precedents where the ATF has done shit like this in the past, which is why I'm kind of concerned about this, because this was researched. They worked hard on this. I'm not saying that makes it good. It's kind of like a shitty macaroni sculpture that your kid makes, but you still have to put it up on the fridge because they worked hard on it. It's more like that, except you love your kids, probably. But this is actually super reminiscent of the 922R stuff that came out in the 90s. Now, if you're an AK guy, you probably know what that means. If you don't, it's basically a ban on a certain amount of imported parts on a firearm here in the US. There's all sorts of ways to get around it, but basically if you're building a parts kit here in the US as a manufacturer, there has to be a certain number of American-made parts on that gun, because foreign parts are scary. It was completely fucking pointless, but that's why you're technically not compliant if you don't have a certain amount of American-made parts on an AK, like barrel, receiver, trigger group counts as 3 parts. There's actually a calculator that you can go to find if your gun is 922R compliant by the amount of American parts versus foreign parts. So knowing about that and then reading this has me kind of concerned that they're actually planning to push this pretty hard. But all right, moving on to Section 3. Configuration of the weapon. Length of pull with accessory in the rearmost lock position. Now, if you're not familiar with what length of pull is, it basically measures where the back of the gun, which would normally be the stock, is in relation to the trigger. It's the length of basically how far out you're holding the gun in order to, get a good trigger pull on it. Less than 10.5 inches, 0 points. 10.5, but under 11.5 inches, 1 point. All the way down to 13.5 inches and over is 4 points. Now, 13.5 inches is a standard length of pull for a firearm, period. Obviously not handguns, but literally everything else. So if you have a normal length of pull, you're automatically at 4 points and you have a felony. And that's with the accessory in the rearmost locked position, meaning if you have one of those adjustable braces and you're at a length of pull of over 13 inches, you've already got a felony. It's automatic 4 points. You cannot pass go. Do not collect $200. In fact, pay $200 or Waco. Attachment method. Pretty much anything except the AR style pistol buffer tube is going to give you points on here. A folding adapter, that gives you 2 points. Stabilizing brace modifications. This is where shit gets a little wild. A fin type design with a strap made out of elastic materials, 2 points. Fin is lacking an arm strap is 2 points, like the CAC braces and such. Cuff type design with the strap removed. Just removing your strap from your pistol brace. The cuff style braces, 4 points. Removing your strap, which I know a lot of people who have done that just because they're dorky. Just removing that little nylon strap, 4 points. That's a felony. Modifying your brace for shouldering, felony. What does that mean? I don't really know. Modified shoulder stock, or originally a shoulder stock, 4 points, felony. And for the icing on the shit cake, peripheral accessories. Presence of a hand stop, 2 points. Presence of a secondary grip, indicating two-handed fire, even like the angled foregrips, 4 points. Immediate felony. If you have an angled foregrip on your brace pistol now, doesn't matter if that brace complies with everything somehow, it's still an SBR. Presence of a sight or a scope with eye relief incapable of one-handed fire. I don't know what that is even supposed to mean, but that's 4 points. If they just think that your scope or your dot or whatever is in the wrong place, that's a felony. And to top it all off, weapon as configured weighing more than 120 ounces, or about 7.5 pounds. They specify weighed with magazine unloaded. It's worth pointing out standard AR-15 is about 6.5 pounds. That's without anything on it. Sights, scope, backup irons, whatever the hell you end up adding to your rifle. Sling, laser, tactical bean holder, whatever the hell you want to put on that thing. If your gun now gets, your pistol now gets over 7.5 pounds, you can go to jail. Not only can you go to jail, you can go to jail and lose your gun rights for the rest of your life because you're now a felon. And so that's what I think this all comes down to at the end of the day. This was made on purpose to essentially ban the vast majority of braces on the market today and make it virtually impossible for people to comply with this law so that they'll just stop using them or they won't be able to sell them. It also means that the ATF is changing definitions, which they're not really allowed to do. That was written in the law. That law was passed by Congress and signed by the President of the United States when that law was passed. So who the fuck are you to come back and change the definitions without going through that same process again? But, you know, who am I? So yeah, clearly, even though I don't think I even own any braces, to be honest. I've got an SOT. I just formed 2 SBRs, machine guns, whatever. That's not the fucking point. It's a terrible precedence, and it's pissing me off, and it should piss you off too. Which is how we get around to what do we do about it. Well, I already told you since from the sponsored spot of this video, I'm going to be financially supporting the Firearm Policy Coalition as continuing to encourage you guys to do the same. But you don't even have to spend any money because right now there is an open call for comment from the ATF. I'm going to use the link in the description and the pinned comment. You can go ahead and click through there. Please be respectful in your comments, but tell them that you oppose this completely. Again, be polite. If you basically just say, fuck you, Fedboy Re, it's not going to be taken seriously. It's not going to be considered for comment. But if we get enough people, we've succeeded on this in the past. And like said, even if it doesn't do anything, it's still ammunition for groups like the Firearm Policy Coalition to come back in court and say, hey, look at how many people disagreed with this and left this in public comment, and you still did it anyway. You're giving the pro-gun groups good ammunition in the fight later, if nothing else. Anyway, guys, sorry this was a bit more of a serious video. I just think this stuff is important to talk about when it comes around because, you know, gun meme review is fun. All the AK-50 stuff, I think it's super fucking cool. I love it. I enjoy it. I love doing range time. None of that matters if we keep losing ground the way we are. So forgive me for the more serious videos, but I do think it's important. But anyways, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you staying to the end of the video. And as always, I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next video. Thanks.
Fuel is my obsession to make the perfect weapon like Rasputin's rise to the top.
It's going to be a crazy couple years, guys, so we kind of need to hunker down and really kind of rally together as a gun community and get behind groups like the Firearm Policy Coalition, which is why I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and all of the sponsored spot money for this, fuck me.